Welcome to Management of Organizations in Europe. This is Lecture 4, Employee Behavior and Motivation, which is Chapter 8 of Business Essentials. My name is Gijs Vermeulen and I will talk you through this relatively short chapter. So let's start with today's learning objectives. After reading and studying the book and checking out this video lecture, I hope that you can identify and discuss the basic form of behavior that employees exhibit in organizations. I want you to be able to describe the nature and importance of individual differences among employees, explain the meaning and importance of psychological contracts and employee motivation, identify and summarize the most important models and concepts of employee motivation, and be able to describe some of the strategies and techniques used by organizations to improve employee motivation. As the chapter is quite straightforward, this will be a shorter video lecture and I expect you to read most of the modules and theories yourself. Before we continue, we need to understand that behavior is something we need to define. So the pattern of actions by the members of an organization that directly or indirectly influence the organization's effectiveness is how I would define professional behavior. So we could actually put that into three forms. We have performance behavior, which is pretty much the set of work-related behavior that the organization expects the employees to display. So what is expected with regard to performance. We also have the organizational citizenship, and that is how do you as an individual contribute to the organization. You're part of an organization, you're an ambassador, so they also expect you to behave in a certain way. We also know a less positive form of behavior, which is counterproductive behavior. And that's behavior of employees which actually do not help the organization. This is when personal life or political preference conflicts with the goals of the organization. As an employee, you of course are entitled to your personal life, but you're also part of an organization where you want to contribute. So a really interesting and cool thing about behavior is that we are all different. So we have individual difference. So life is beautiful because we're all different. That inspires, it creates, but it also makes it difficult because we're different, we do not always know how other people react. In the course of management of organization, we are looking from the management perspective of how can you motivate a team, your workers. So you need to understand that if you say well-intended things to people who respond different, you do not get the effect. So it's about you understanding how the team works to motivate them. So you need to figure out what is your personality and of course, how are the others in your team. So personality is the stable set of psychological attributes that distinguishes us. So what you can do is you do a test to figure out how you are. For example, the Big 5 personality test. I put a link here. Unfortunately, you can't click it, but you can look it up. Or you go to the slides which are also on Blackboard, so you can click it. So it actually says, there are 5 big attributes in the personality. And on those we have a scale. And based that, then you know how you are. And you need to know how you are to also know how do you come across to others. Also, if you know what the personality is of people in your team, you also know how to approach them, or you can predict their reactions. It's really difficult to change personality. However, you are able to change behavior. Of course, this is also from both sides. Besides this Big 5 test, your textbook also talks about the Myers-Briggs framework. It's also an interesting approach to understand personalities. Please check it out. So one of the attributes as well is the emotional intelligence people have. So we have IQ, which is pretty much measured how smart you are. You can do an IQ test, and then you know compared to the average if you are smarter or less smart. But that will, of course, define a level on which you can work. However, if you work with people, IQ, emotional intelligence, might be more relevant. It's the extent to which people are self-aware, how you can manage your emotion, how you can motivate yourself, but also it's about empathy for others. So, do you have social skills? So if you want to know more about EQ, of course you can read the book, but also I have a test here for you, which is free, which you can do. And you can train IQ, you can train EQ. So IQ is by studying hard and doing a lot of puzzles, but EQ you can also train yourself by getting feedback to make your blind spot smaller. So feedback is very important. So at the end of teamwork, a project, ask others, about how did you do, how could you do better. This will help you a lot. Besides all these complex models of personality, several other traits which can influence behavior are mentioned in the book. It's quite straightforward. It starts on page 279. Do not miss out on that, as it might be tested. We're only going through the highlights this week. So next thing I want to discuss with you is the psychological contract. There's a psychological contract between you and an organization. So it's really important that the right person gets the right job. Maybe I should say this the other way around. It's important that a manager finds the right candidate for a position. Yeah, we as a company are in need of a certain set, so we're going to look for that. So it's very important to manage the set of expectations on how the individual can contribute, but also check what you as an organization can provide the employees in return. What are their needs? This is called inducements, and it needs to be a good match. The extent to which this actually matches would be called the person job fit. And you can imagine that if the fit is not right, it won't be a sustainable relationship between the two, as either the person will be unmotivated or the organization will not be happy about the skills and the competency. So if you have the right person job fit, which I hope you do, let's talk about motivation. So motivation is the set of forces that management have that causes people to behave in certain ways. For a manager, it's of course important to understand how to motivate your team or your co-worker or your colleague, maybe if it's in the same level, because in the end you want people to go faster or better. So this started out as in the 1800 with scientific management by Taylor. It was quite straightforward classical theory. That's why we call it classical. It was money-driven motivation. So if you pay people more, they go faster. Also, what they figured out, if you break down a job in components, it becomes easier, and you can also go faster. They never thought that people would get bored if they would be only doing one task. So did not really work out. Of course, if you pay people more, they go faster. If you make it an easy task, they can do more. But it won't last long. It's short run effect. So it continued with Haythorne around 1925, who has proven an effect in which there's a tendency that productivity can increase when workers, they're believing that they receive special attention. So it was not only money driven, but also a compliment or appreciation. This was the beginning of the development of multiple studies. One of it is the behavior theory also of X and Y by Douglas McGregor. He concluded that there's two viewpoints which managers have, X or Y. It's two opposite. In the X, they believe that people are lazy. And in Y, they believe that they're energetic and willing. There are a few more breakdowns in the X and the I. But he also believed that managers which adopted theory I were much better as a result in motivation. So if you believe in the good of people, you will be rewarded. Also interesting in this is the behavioral theory of Maslow. Maslow is also known, maybe by you already, from marketing. It's from customer perspective, very important, but you can also use it in management for motivation. And Maslow believes that you first need to fulfill basic needs before moving to the higher level. So first you need to make sure that you pay your workers enough that they can have breathing, food, a home, etc. Then after they have it, they might want more safety, and later on they want love and belonging and esteem. So respect. So there will be a point that money is not the only driver. It's more about morale, creativity. So you need to figure out where your employee or the one you want to motivate is in the pyramid to know what you need to offer. There's so much more than just money in a job. So continuing, let's have a look at the contemporary theory. So this is more about expectancy. That's one of the views, and that means that people work towards rewards. So people work hard if they think they're able to achieve the goal. There's a downside to this, because this theory about expectancy says that if you believe as a worker that you can't reach the goal, you will not try. So make sure that the goal you have for the worker is within reach. Then they will do it and they will contribute to it. If it's too big or they do not feel that they can influence, they go more to the Hadron said, the X. We also know the equity theory. So that's that we evaluate our treatment relative to the treatment of others. So if you have a certain set of incentives, like company car, pay, pension, phone, and someone new comes in at the same position, you're going to see what they get. So if they get the same as when you started, you're okay. You understand that, so you will work. If you actually had a better deal, that gives a really good feeling, so you feel appreciated, so you will also work more, maybe. However, if you figure out that the new junior employee in your position gets a better car, a nicer phone, and a higher salary, you do not feel appreciated, and your motivation will drop hard. So it's really important to look at the equity, that people doing the same things will get the same. There has been quite some things about this in the news, right? Because there's still certain industries where male workers are paid more than female workers, although they do exactly the same. This will not work from a motivation perspective. It's really strange that someone with the same task would get a different pay. And that does not help to motivate people. People want to be equal, and if they get a bit more because of circumstances, that's okay. However, if you get less, that will not work. So if we then continue to the motivation theory, this is of course how would you apply this in practice. So this is quite straightforward. The book is quite clear on that. So we have, of course, the positive reinforcement. So if people do well, you thank them either with money, compliments, or the entire set you have. Quite basic, but this works. You can also look more at management by objectives. So that's a set of procedures involving both managers and subordinates in setting goals and evaluating it. So every time you reach it, you give them a bit of higher goal. You can let them grow to management. You can give them, you say, no, you can't grow to management, but we're not going to control you from a team perspective. You can look at job enrichment, so you give them more tasks if they do well. The only one which I want to point out, which from the book, is job redesign. And this is, when you see that it's not working and you want to motivate multiple people and your job fit isn't right, you can design a satisfactory fit between workers and their job. So if you can't find the perfect job fit for multiple workers, you redesign the organization in a way that people are more happy. There's also companies where you have job rotation, that every few years you go to a different department to learn about the company and so on. So these are the highlights of Chapter 8. After studying, check if you can answer the learning objectives. If you can't answer the learning objectives, you should be successful and you can continue on to the next video lecture and the next chapter. Thank you for joining this week, and next week a new video lecture, and it is on, I'm checking in the book for you, leadership and decision making. Leadership and decision making. You can also look back to the interview we have posted with Mr. Rawal. Very interesting. Thank you again. In class.